Did you know that one of the absolute top reasons new businesses fail is, well, simply a lack of startup capital? It's not a flawed product, right? And it's not always bad timing. Honestly, it's just running out of the cash you need to get the engine turning. If you're an entrepreneur staring down the daunting barrel of funding your big dream, consider this explainer your ultimate survival guide.
I am so glad you're joining us. Today, our main goal is demystifying the dense, intimidating, and let's face it, often completely misunderstood landscape of startup funding. We're going to break down exactly where the money comes from, what it's going to cost you, and how you can position yourself to actually get your hands on it.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the startup capital reality, move on to debt versus equity, dive deep into the debt financing route, explore the equity financing route, and wrap the whole thing up with some creative funding alternatives. Let's jump right into Section 1, the startup capital reality, knowing what you need. Because before you can even think about asking for money, you have to know exactly what stage of the game you're playing in. Every business goes through distinct financial life stages. You start out with seed capital, for your initial research and planning. Then comes startup capital. That's for your year one essentials like rent, utilities, and maybe your first hires. Later on, you might need mezzanine capital for expansion or bridge capital to tide you over between major funding rounds. But for today's explainer, we're focusing strictly on securing that absolutely crucial startup capital. It is literally the lifeblood of your first year in operation. And that brings us to Section 2, debt versus equity, the great divide. This is the foundational choice that's going to dictate exactly how you run your company for years to come. So here is the ultimate trade-off. On the debt side, the great thing is you keep 100% control of your company. But you are legally obligated to pay a hefty tab, with interest over time, no matter what happens. Now, over on the equity side, you get the cash without that terrifying monthly loan payment. But you have to give away a piece of your company to investors. You're sharing the future rewards, and, crucially, you're sharing control. So if you're kind of leaning toward debt right now, you really have to ask yourself a hard question. Are you willing to lose your house if the company goes under? That's a rapid-fire reality check for you. Debt financing usually requires collateral and personal guarantees. If the business fails, that monthly payment doesn't magically disappear. It comes straight out of your personal pocket. But hey, if you're leaning toward equity, here is the counter question. Am I really the control freak people say I am? Because choosing equity means you are actively inviting investors to scrutinize your confidential financials, heavily critique your business decisions, and potentially even fire you from your own company. You absolutely have to know your own personality before you choose a path. All right, Section 3, the debt financing route, keeping control. Let's talk about borrowing money, using personal funds, and keeping 100% of your beloved company. Believe it or not, over 50% of small business startups are financed with personal funds, home equity, or credit cards. A lot of founders essentially just bootstrap their way up. Some even use what we might call the Spike Lee method, just maxing out all those pre-approved credit cards that flood your mailbox. Now, look, it can work, but you have to carefully check those interest rates and late fees, or that debt is going to swallow you whole. Now, when you go to a traditional bank, you're likely going to encounter asset-backed borrowing. See, banks lend based on current profitability and hard collateral. They don't lend based on your optimistic potential. They want real estate, vehicles, or personal savings to back that loan. Frankly, you might need to take a quick moment to evaluate your kids' athletic prowess or scholastic strengths before you go risking their college fund as collateral for your startup. If you don't happen to have heavy assets lying around, the U.S. Small Business Administration, the SBA, can step in. Now, the absolutely crucial point to understand here is that the SBA doesn't lend you the money directly. What they do is guarantee the loan for your local bank. For a standard loan under $150,000, the SBA guarantees up to 85%. This drastically lowers the risk for the local lender, which gives them the confidence to finally stamp approved on your application. If you're going to pitch a bank, you need to follow these 3 steps. Step 1, be hyper-specific about exactly what the loan is for. Step 2, match the loan length to the asset's lifespan. Please don't get a 15-year loan for office supplies you'll burn through in 6 months. And step 3, prove exactly how the bank gets their money back. Remember, bankers really don't care about your grand world-changing vision. They are purely interested in your mathematical ability to repay them with interest. Okay, let's pivot over to Section 4, the equity financing route, sharing the pie. This is where you trade pieces of your company for massive, rapid capital injections to fuel explosive growth. Within equity, there are 2 main players. On the left, we've got angel investors. These are typically wealthy individuals, often investing their own personal money locally, usually for under $200,000, and they tend to act as sort of hands-off mentors. On the right side, we have venture capitalists, or VCs. These are high-stakes firms managing pools of money upwards of $100 million. They rarely invest less than $250,000, and they play to win. They demand aggressive 20% annual returns, an eventual IPO or acquisition, and significant control over your board. The biggest concept you need to grasp right now is post-money valuation. When a VC firm injects millions of dollars into your startup, your ownership pie gets heavily diluted. After a major seed or secondary round, it's incredibly common for the original shareholders to be diluted all the way down to 50%, leaving the VC firm owning the other half of your company outright. And let me tell you, getting a VC's attention is incredibly hard. They review hundreds of business plans a week and might only pull the trigger on 5 to 10 a year. To even get in the door, you're going to need an airtight pitch and crystal clear margins. But most importantly, an experienced management team. VCs invest in teams that can execute. This means if you want their money, you might seriously need to rethink Cousin Louie's token position on your board of directors. And please, if you actually get an offer, you have to remember this rule. Do the homework on the VC just as the VC is doing it on you. You need to call up and interview the founders of their past portfolio companies. Ask them, was the VC overly controlling? Did they actually help with industry contacts? Do you even have compatible personality types? Guys, this is a marriage, and you absolutely need to know who you're getting into bed with. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Creative Funding Alternatives, Thinking Outside the Box. Because if traditional bank loans or high-stakes venture capital don't perfectly fit your needs, don't worry, there's a whole world of creative financing out there.
Let's just run through a quick lightning round of these alternatives. Equipment leasing gets you the gear you need without burdening your balance sheet. Factoring allows you to sell your accounts receivable at a slight discount for immediate, instant cash flow. Convertible debt is a brilliant hybrid. It actually starts as a loan, but gives the lender the option to convert it into equity if the company takes off. You could also look into asset sale leasebacks to free up cash tied up in equipment, or use purchase order advances if you've got guaranteed sales lined up but no cash to actually fulfill them.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a deeply personal question. What do you value more, being the sole captain of a small ship or a passenger on a rocket ship? Bootstrapping gives you total autonomy. Venture capital straps you to a rocket, but you might just be along for the ride. The capital path you choose will literally define your life for the next decade. So which founder do you want to be?